The shuttle shook as it docked with Orion Station. Yuna held her bag tightly and looked through the small window. The station was huge. It floated in the darkness of space like a metal city. Lights blinked on its surface. Ships came and went from its many ports. This would be her home for the next 2 years. She was a xenobiologist. Her job was to study alien life forms. She had trained for 5 years on Earth and spent another 2 years on smaller stations. But Orion was different. Orion was where hundreds of species lived and worked together. It was the heart of galactic research, and Yuna had finally earned her place here. The airlock opened with a hiss. Yuna stepped onto the station and took a deep breath. The air smelled clean but strange. There was a faint sweetness to it, something she could not name. Around her, beings of all shapes and sizes moved through the corridors. Some walked on 2 legs like humans. Others floated. Some crawled on many limbs. Yuna smiled. She had always loved aliens. While other humans kept their distance, she found them fascinating. A man in a gray uniform approached her. He was Korean like her, with tired eyes and a kind face. "It must be Yuna," he said. "I am Minho. I will show you to your quarters." Yuna bowed her head slightly. "Thank you. I am happy to finally be here." Minho nodded but did not smile. He looked worried about something. They walked together through the long corridors. Minho explained the basic rules of the station. Where to eat. Where to work. What areas were restricted. Yuna listened carefully, but she noticed that Minho kept hesitating. He wanted to say something else. Finally, he stopped walking. They stood in front of a gray door with a number on it. This was her room. "There is something I need to tell you," Minho said. His voice was low. "Because of the limited space on this station, you have been assigned a roommate." Yuna shrugged. "That is fine. I expected to share a room." Minho shook his head. "Your roommate is not human. He is a Veshan." Yuna felt her heart skip. She had heard of the Veshan. Everyone had. They were large aliens with dark blue scales, 4 arms, and glowing eyes. They came from a warrior culture. Stories said they were violent and dangerous. Many species feared them. Humans avoided them completely. A Veshan. Yuna repeated. "Yes. His name is Kale. He has been on this station for 8 months. No one else would room with him. The administration had no choice but to assign you."
Minho paused.
"You can request a transfer. I can help you file the paperwork tonight." Yuna thought for a moment. She had come to Orion to study alien life. She had promised herself that she would not be like other humans who feared what they did not understand. If she ran away now, she would be breaking that promise. "No," she said. "I will stay." Minho stared at her. "Are you sure? Veshans are not friendly. They do not speak much. They do not trust easily. And if something goes wrong?" "I will be fine," Yuna said. She smiled, even though her hands were shaking. "Thank you for the warning," Minho sighed. "Be careful, Yuna." He walked away, looking back once before disappearing around the corner. Yuna stood alone in front of the door. She took a deep breath and pressed the panel. The door slid open. The room was small. There were 2 beds, 2 desks, and a shared bathroom. The lights were dim, and in the corner, sitting on the floor with his back against the wall, was Kale. He was bigger than she had imagined. His body was covered in dark blue scales that seemed to absorb the light. He had 4 arms, each one thick with muscle. His eyes glowed amber, like fire burning in the shadows. He did not move when she entered. He only watched her. Yuna swallowed hard. Her body told her to run, but she forced herself to step inside. The door closed behind her. "Hello," she said. Her voice was small, but steady. "My name is Yuna. I am your new roommate." Kale did not answer. He continued to watch her with those glowing eyes. His face showed no expression. Yuna could not tell if he was angry or simply uninterested. She walked to her bed and set down her bag. Her hands were trembling. She could feel his gaze on her back. The silence was heavy. She wanted to say something else, but she did not know what. Finally, she turned around. Kale had not moved. "I know that you probably do not want a roommate," Yuna said, and I know that humans have not been kind to your people. But I am not here to cause trouble. I just want to do my work and live peacefully. I hope we can be friends." The word sounded strange when she said it. Friends with a Veshan. But she meant it. Kale stared at her for a long moment. Then he looked away. He said nothing. Yuna sighed and began to unpack her things. She told herself to be patient. Trust took time. She would not give up after one night. Over the next few weeks, Yuna kept her promise. Every morning, she greeted Kale warmly. Every evening, she asked him about his day. She shared her food with him, even though he never asked for it. She told him about her work, her research, her dreams. She asked him about his homeworld, his culture, his life before the station. At first, Kale ignored her completely. He would leave the room when she entered. He would sit in silence when she spoke. But Yuna did not stop. She believed that kindness could break any wall, no matter how thick, and slowly. Something began to change. One night, Yuna returned to their room after a long day of work. She was tired and hungry. She sat on her bed and began eating a simple meal. Kale was in his usual corner watching her. "Would you like some?" Yuna asked, holding out a piece of bread. She had asked this question 100 times before. Kale had always refused. But tonight, he did something different. He reached out with one of his forehands and took the bread. Yuna felt her heart jump. She tried not to show her excitement. She simply smiled and continued eating. Kale ate the bread slowly. When he finished, he looked at her. For the first time, he spoke. "Why?" His voice was deep, like distant thunder. "Why? What?" Yuna asked. "Why are you kind to me? Others fear me. Others hate me. But you stay, you speak. You share why?" Yuna thought about her answer. She wanted to say the right thing, "Because I do not believe that fear should decide how we treat others," she said. "Because I think that everyone deserves kindness. And because," she smiled gently, "I think you are lonely, just like me." Kale was silent for a long time. Then, slowly, he nodded. "You are strange, human," he said. "But not in a bad way," Yuna laughed softly. "I will take that as a compliment." From that night on, things were different. Kale began to speak more. He answered her questions. He shared small details about his life. He even began to wait for her to return each evening. A quiet, unlikely friendship had begun. And Yuna knew, deep in her heart, that this was only the beginning. 3 months passed on Orion Station. Yuna had found her rhythm. She woke early each morning, worked in the xenobiology lab until evening, and returned to her quarters where Kale waited. Their friendship had grown stronger with each passing day. They talked about many things now: science, culture, food, dreams. Kale was still quiet by nature, but he had opened up to her in ways she never expected. Yuna learned that Kale had been exiled from his homeworld. Among the Veshan, young warriors were required to complete a ritual hunt. They had to kill a creature from a weaker species to prove their strength. But Kale had refused. He believed the hunt was cruel and pointless. For this, his people cast him out. He had wandered the galaxy alone for years, before finding work on Orion Station. "They called me weak," Kale told her one night. "They said I brought shame to my family. But I could not kill something that had done me no harm. I could not be that kind of warrior." Yuna had listened with tears in her eyes. She understood loneliness. She understood being different. And she admired Kale for standing by his beliefs, even when it cost him everything. "You are not weak," she had told him. "You are one of the strongest people I know." Kale had not replied. But she saw something change in his glowing eyes. Something soft. Something grateful now. 3 months into her assignment, Yuna felt truly happy. She had meaningful work. She had a friend. For the first time in years, she did not feel alone. But the station was changing. Something was wrong. It started with small things. Equipment in the lower decks stopped working. Supplies disappeared from storage rooms. Crew members reported seeing shadows moving in restricted areas. The station's security teams searched everywhere but found nothing. Yuna heard the rumors in the lab. Some said it was a technical problem. Others said it was sabotage. A few whispered about intruders, but no one wanted to believe it. Orion Station was supposed to be safe. It was supposed to be protected. One evening, Yuna was working late in the lab. Her friend Hannah, a medic from the medical bay, came to visit her. "You should go back to your quarters," Hannah said. Her face was pale. "Something bad is happening." "What do you mean?" Yuna asked. Hannah looked around to make sure no one else was listening. "Security found a body in the lower decks this morning. One of the maintenance workers, he was killed. They are trying to keep it quiet, but word is spreading." Yuna felt cold. Killed by who? They do not know, but people are saying it might be raiders. The Dren Syndicate. Yuna had heard of the Dren Syndicate. They were a group of mercenaries and criminals who attacked stations and ships across the galaxy. They stole cargo, took hostages, and killed anyone who resisted. They were brutal and fearless. Raiders on Orion Station, Yuna whispered. "That is impossible. The security here is too strong." "I thought so too," Hannah said. "But something is happening, Yuna. Please be careful. Stay in your room tonight. Lock your door." Yuna nodded. She packed her things quickly and hurried back to her quarters. When she arrived, she found Kale standing near the window, staring out into space. His scales were bristling. His forearms were tense. He looked like a predator sensing danger. "Kale," Yuna said softly. "Is everything okay?" He turned to face her. His amber eyes were burning brighter than usual. "Stay," he said. His voice was sharp. "Tonight. Do not leave this room." Aruna set down her bag. "What is happening? Do you know something?" Kale was silent for a moment. Then he spoke slowly, as if choosing each word with care. "I have been listening, watching. The ones who came to this station. They are not workers. They are not visitors. They are hunters. Hunters." Yuna felt fear crawling up her spine. "You mean the raiders? The Dren Syndicate?" Kale nodded. "They have been hiding in the lower decks. Moving in the shadows. They are planning something. Tonight." As if to confirm his words, the lights in their room flickered. A moment later, an alarm began to sound. Red lights flashed in the corridor outside. A voice crackled through the speakers. "Attention all personnel. This is a station-wide lockdown. All crew members must remain in their quarters. Do not attempt to leave. Security teams are responding to a critical situation. Repeat, do not leave your quarters." Yuna felt her heart pounding. She looked at Kale. He had moved to the door. He stood in front of it, blocking the exit with his massive body. "Kale, what are you doing?" "I am keeping my promise," he said. "What promise?" Kale looked at her with those glowing eyes. In them, she saw something she had never seen before. Determination, loyalty, love. "When you first came to this room, you offered me kindness. You offered me food. You offered me friendship. No one had ever done that before. Not humans. Not aliens. No one." He paused. "Among my people there is a bond called shieldkin. It is sacred. When someone proves their heart, you become their shield. You protect them with your life." Yuna felt tears forming in her eyes. "Kale, you are my shieldkin, Yuna. I will not let them hurt you. I will stay at this door until morning, until the danger has passed." Outside, they could hear sounds of chaos, running footsteps, shouts. Somewhere far away, a scream echoed through the metal walls. The raiders were moving through the station. Yuna wanted to argue. She wanted to tell Kale that he did not have to protect her, that she could take care of herself. But looking at him, she knew that nothing would change his mind. This was who he was. This was the warrior he chose to be. Not a killer, but a protector. She walked to her bed and sat down. Her legs were shaking. "Okay," she said quietly. "I will stay." Kale nodded. He turned back to the door and braced his forearms against the frame. He was a wall of muscle and scale. Nothing would get through him easily. The hours began to stretch. Yuna listened to the distant sounds of violence. She heard alarms. She heard weapons firing. She heard voices crying for help. Each sound made her heart ache. She wanted to go out and help. But she trusted Kale. If he said to stay, she would stay. Hey, are you afraid? Kale asked suddenly. Yuna thought about the question. Yes, she admitted. I am afraid. But I am more afraid of losing you than I am of the raiders. Kale turned his head slightly. You will not lose me. I am not easy to kill. Despite everything, Yuna smiled. I know, but please be careful. When this is over, I want to share breakfast with you. Like always. Kale was silent for a moment. Then he spoke, his voice softer than she had ever heard it. I would like that. The night was long. The danger was real. But in that small room, two unlikely friends held on to hope. Yuna closed her eyes and prayed for morning. Outside, the storm was just beginning. The night moved slowly, like a heavy fog that would not lift. Yuna sat on her bed with her knees pulled up to her chest. She wrapped a blanket around her shoulders, but she could not stop shaking. It was not the cold that made her tremble. It was the fear. The sounds of chaos echoed through the station like a dark song. Screams, explosions, the sharp crack of weapons. Each noise made her flinch. Kale had not moved from the door. He stood like a statue carved from stone, his forearms pressed against the metal frame. His scales caught the flickering red light from the emergency signals in the corridor. His amber eyes glowed steady and bright, watching, waiting. He was ready for anything. Hours passed. 1, 2, 3. The chaos outside grew louder, then quieter, then louder again. The raiders were moving through the station in waves. Security teams fought back, but it was clear that they were struggling. Orion Station had never faced an attack like this before. Yuna could not sleep. She could not even close her eyes. Every time she tried, she saw terrible images in her mind. People being hurt. People dying. She thought about Hannah. She thought about Minho. Were they safe? Were they alive? She had no way to know. You should rest, Kale said suddenly. His voice was calm, as if they were having a normal conversation on any normal night. Yuna shook her head. I cannot. My mind will not stop. Kale was quiet for a moment. Then he asked, What are you thinking about? Everything, Yuna said. My friends. My family back on Earth. This station, you. I am thinking about how strange life is. 3 months ago I walked through that door, terrified of meeting you. And now, you are the only thing standing between me and death. I told you I would protect you. And I believe you. But, Yuna's voice broke. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I just wish we were not in this situation at all. I wish we were having dinner together, talking about science and stars. I wish everything was normal. Kale turned his head slightly. His glowing eyes softened. Normal is a dream. Reality is what we face. All we can do is face it together. Yuna smiled weakly. When did you become so wise? I had a good teacher, Kale said. A small human who would not stop talking to me, even when I ignored her. Yuna laughed. It was a small laugh, fragile like glass, but it was real. For a moment, the fear loosened its grip on her heart. Tell me about your home, Yuna said. Your real home. Before you were exiled. Kale was silent for a long time. Yuna thought he might not answer. But then he began to speak, his deep voice filling the small room like distant thunder. My world is called Vesha Prime. It is a planet of forests and mountains. The trees grow taller than any building humans have ever made. The rivers run fast and cold. At night, the sky burns with 3 moons, each a different color. Red, blue, gold. Yuna closed her eyes and tried to imagine it. A world of giants. A world of beauty. My people are warriors, Kale continued. We are taught to fight from the moment we can walk. Strength is everything to us. Weakness is shame. From childhood, I was trained to kill. I was good at it. One of the best in my generation. What changed? Yuna asked softly. Kale paused. When he spoke again, his voice was heavier. The ritual hunt. Every young Vatian must complete it to become a true adult. We are sent to a weaker world. We must find a creature, any creature, and kill it. We must bring back proof of our kill. Those who succeed are honored. Those who fail are cast out. And you refused. Yes, Kale's scales shifted, a sign of discomfort. I traveled to a small planet. The creatures there were gentle. They had soft fur and large eyes. They did not fight. They did not run. They simply looked at me with trust. And I could not do it. I could not take a life that meant me no harm, and I felt tears on her cheeks. That was brave, Kale. My people did not think so. They called me a coward. They stripped me of my name, my family, my home. I was cast into the darkness of space with nothing. For years I wandered. I took jobs that no one else wanted. I survived, but I did not live. Not really. Till you came here, Una said. Kale nodded slowly. Until I came here. Until I met you? The room was quiet. Outside, the sounds of fighting had faded for the moment. It was as if the station itself was holding its breath. Una, Kale said. I want you to know something. What? Before you, I had given up. I believed that I would spend the rest of my life alone. That I would die forgotten, without meaning. But you changed that. Your kindness, your patience, your strange habit of talking to someone who never answered. You gave me hope again. Una stood up from her bed. She walked to Kale and placed her small hand on one of his massive arms. His scales were cool and smooth under her fingers. You are not alone anymore, she said. And you will never be forgotten. Not by me. Kale looked down at her. In his glowing eyes, she saw something she had never seen in any alien before. Tears. Vessian could cry. She had not known that. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you for seeing me. They stayed like that for a long moment, two beings from different worlds, connected by something stronger than blood or species. Connection, understanding, love in its purest form. Then the sounds returned, footsteps, heavy and fast. Getting closer, Kale's body tensed. He gently pushed Una back, toward her bed. Stay behind me, he said. His voice had changed. It was hard now, cold, the voice of a warrior. Una retreated. She grabbed a heavy tool from her desk, the only thing she had that could be used as a weapon. She did not know how to fight, but she would not be helpless. She refused to be helpless. The footsteps stopped outside their door. Voices spoke in a language Una did not understand. Then there was silence. A loud bang echoed through the room. Something hit the door from outside. Then again, and again. The metal began to bend. They are coming, Una said, her voice shaking. Kale spread his forearms wide, bracing himself against the door. His muscles bulged. His scales hardened. He became a living shield. Let them come, he said. They will not pass. Another bang. The door bent further. A crack of light appeared at the edge. Una took a deep breath. She thought of her family. She thought of Earth. She thought of the stars she loved so much. And then she thought of Kale, her friend, her protector, her shieldkin. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. Until morning, until the end, the door began to break. The door exploded inward. Metal flew through the air like broken teeth. Smoke filled the room, thick and gray, burning Una's eyes. She pressed herself against the far wall, gripping her makeshift weapon with trembling hands. Her heart pounded so hard she could hear it in her ears. Through the smoke, figures emerged. There were 4 of them. Raiders. Members of the Dren Syndicate. The first one through the door was massive. He stood almost as tall as Kale, with gray skin covered in scars. His eyes were black and empty, like holes in his face. He wore heavy armor and carried an energy blade that hummed with deadly power. This was Dren himself. The leader behind him came 3 more raiders. They were smaller, but just as dangerous. They carried plasma rifles and knives. Their faces showed no fear, no hesitation. They were killers, trained and ruthless. Dren looked at Kale and laughed. It was an ugly sound, like rocks grinding together. Veshan, Dren said. His voice was thick with contempt. I heard there was one of your kind on this station. The coward who refused to hunt. The exile. He spat on the ground. Step aside, coward. We are not here for you. We want the human. She is worth good money to the right buyers. Kale did not move. He stood in the center of the room, his forearms raised, his body between Yuna and the raiders. His scales had darkened to almost black. His amber eyes burned like twin suns. You will not touch her, Kale said. His voice was low and steady, but there was thunder beneath it. Leave now, and you might survive. Dren laughed again. Brave words from a coward. Kill him. The three raiders raised their weapons and fired. Plasma bolts screamed through the air, hot and bright. But Kale was faster than they expected. He moved like water, flowing between the shots. His body twisted and turned with impossible grace. 2 bolts missed completely. The third hit his shoulder, burning through his scales, but he did not slow down. Kale crashed into the first raider like a storm. His forearms moved in a blur. One arm grabbed the raider's rifle and crushed it. Another arm struck the raider's chest, sending him flying backward into the wall. The raider hit the metal with a sickening crack and did not get up. The second raider screamed and charged with a knife. Kale caught the blade with one hand, ignoring the blood that dripped from his palm. With his other arms, he grabbed the raider and threw him through the broken doorway. The raider tumbled into the corridor and lay still. The third raider tried to run. Kale caught him by the neck and lifted him off the ground with one arm. The raider kicked and struggled, but it was useless. Kale looked into his eyes, then threw him aside like garbage. The raider crashed into a desk and did not move again. Only Dren remained. The leader of the Dren syndicate was no longer laughing. His black eyes were wide with shock. He had expected easy prey. He had not expected a warrior. You are not a coward, Dren said slowly. You are a monster. Kale replied. I am a protector. There is a difference. Dren raised his energy blade and attacked. He was fast and strong, a trained killer with years of experience. The blade hummed through the air, leaving trails of light. Kale blocked and dodged, using all 4 arms to defend against the relentless assault. But Dren was skilled. Too skilled. The blade found its mark again and again. It cut across Kale's chest, leaving a burning wound. It slashed his arm, spraying blue blood. It stabbed into his side, and Kale let out a roar of pain, while Una watched in horror. Kale was losing. He was bleeding from a dozen wounds. His movements were slowing. Dren pressed forward, sensing victory. This is the end, Vesyan, Dren snarled. Say goodbye. No, Una thought. No. She looked around desperately. There had to be something she could do. She could not just stand here and watch Kale die. She refused. Her eyes landed on the control panel near her bed. The station systems were connected throughout every room. If she could access the emergency protocols, maybe she could do something. Anything. She ran to the panel and began typing. Her fingers moved quickly over the keys. She was a scientist, not a hacker, but she knew the basics of the station's systems. She had studied them during her first week. There, the emergency EMP trigger. It was designed to disable all electronic devices in a localized area. It would shut down weapons, lights, everything. It was meant for emergencies. This was an emergency, Kale. Una shouted, "Close your eyes." She did not know if he heard her. She did not have time to wait. She pressed the button. The room exploded with white light. A pulse of energy ripped through the air, invisible but powerful. Every electronic device in the room died instantly. The lights went dark. Dren's energy blade flickered and went silent. The plasma rifles on the ground became useless metal. For a moment, everything was still. Then Kale attacked. Without his weapon, Dren was just a man in armor. He tried to fight, tried to use his fists and his size. But Kale was a Veshan warrior, born and trained for combat. In the darkness, with only his glowing eyes for light, he was unstoppable. Kale's fists struck like hammers. 1 blow. 2. 3. Dren stumbled backward, blood pouring from his broken face. He tried to raise his arms to defend himself, but Kale was relentless. For arms, for weapons, all moving in perfect coordination. The final blow sent Dren crashing to the ground. He did not get up. He was alive, but broken. The leader of the Dren syndicate lay defeated at the feet of an exile. Silence fell over the room. Yuna stood frozen at the control panel. Her heart was racing. She could not believe what had just happened. They had won. Against all odds, they had won. Then she saw Kale. He was still standing, but barely. Blood poured from his wounds, blue and thick. His scales were cracked and burned. His body swayed like a tree in a storm. His glowing eyes flickered. Kale. Yuna ran to him. She caught him just as his legs gave out. He was heavy, so heavy, but she refused to let him fall. She lowered him gently to the ground, resting his head on her lap. Kale, stay with me, please. You cannot leave me. Not now. Kale looked up at her. His eyes were dim, but still warm. A weak smile crossed his scarred face. Saved me, he whispered. The EMP. Clever human.
Ow.
Tears streamed down Yuna's face. You saved me first. You saved me so many times. Now let me save you. Just hold on. Help will come. You have to hold on. Kale reached up with one of his hands. His bloodied fingers touched her cheek, gentle as a feather. My promise, he said. Until morning. It is not morning yet, Yuna sobbed. You have to stay. You have to see the sunrise with me. We were going to have breakfast together. You promised. Kale's eyes began to close. His breathing slowed.
Ow! Kale. Kale.
In the distance, Yuna heard footsteps, running, voices shouting. Help was coming. Security teams were finally reaching their section of the station. She held Kale tightly, pressing her forehead against his. Please, she whispered. Do not leave me alone. The footsteps grew closer. Dawn was almost here. Light broke through the observation windows of Orion Station as the artificial dawn began its cycle. The station slowly returned to life after the longest night anyone could remember. Emergency teams moved through the corridors, treating the wounded and counting the fallen. Security officers secured the captured raiders, including the broken body of Dren himself. The attack was over. The nightmare had ended. Yuna sat in the medical bay, her eyes red from crying and her body heavy with exhaustion. She had not slept. She had not eaten. She had refused to leave Kale's side, even when the doctors told her to rest. She simply sat in the chair next to his bed, holding one of his massive hands in both of hers, waiting. Kale lay on a special medical bed designed for larger species, tubes and wires connected to his body, pumping medicine and monitoring his vital signs. His wounds had been treated. The burns had been covered. The cuts had been sealed, but he had lost so much blood. His body had suffered so much damage. The doctors said he was stable, but they could not promise anything. They said the next few hours would decide everything. Hannah came to check on her several times. She brought food that Yuna did not eat. She brought blankets that Yuna did not use. She offered words of comfort that Yuna barely heard, but Hannah understood. She was a medic. She had seen this kind of devotion before, so she simply stayed nearby, ready to help when needed. He fought like a demon, one of the security officers said as he passed through the medical bay. He was talking to a colleague, but Yuna heard every word. For raiders, he took down 4 of them with his bare hands. Saved that human scientist. Never seen anything like it. Vesians are warriors, the colleague replied. But I heard this one was an exile. A coward who refused to hunt? Does that look like a coward to you? The officer nodded toward Kale's bed. That creature nearly died protecting someone. That is not cowardice. That is something else entirely. Yuna closed her eyes. She felt the tears coming again, but she was too tired to cry. She just held Kale's hand tighter and prayed to whatever gods might be listening. Hours passed. The medical bay grew quieter as patients were transferred to recovery rooms. The emergency teams finished their work. The station began to heal, and then, just as the artificial sun reached its midday position, Kale opened his eyes. Una felt his hand twitch in hers. She looked up and saw those amber eyes, dim but alive, looking back at her. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Kale, can you hear me?" He blinked slowly. His mouth moved, trying to form words. Finally, a sound came out, rough and weak. "Is it morning?" Una laughed. It burst out of her like water from a broken dam. She laughed and cried at the same time, tears streaming down her face, her body shaking with relief. "Yes," she said. "Yes, it is morning. You made it. You kept your promise." Kale tried to smile, but his face was too weak. Instead, he simply squeezed her hand with what little strength he had. "Good," he whispered. "Then we can have breakfast." The doctors rushed over when they realized he was awake. They checked his vitals, asked him questions, tested his responses. Everything looked positive. He would need weeks of rest and treatment, but he would survive. He would recover. Una stepped back to let the doctors work, but she never stopped smiling. She never let go of hope. In the days that followed, news of what happened spread throughout the station and beyond. The story of the human scientist and the Veshan exile who stood together against impossible odds became famous. People who had once feared and avoided Kale now looked at him with respect. Some even came to the medical bay to thank him personally. Minho visited one afternoon. He stood awkwardly at the door of Kale's room, holding a small package. "I brought some food from the cafeteria," he said. "The good stuff. Not the usual garbage they serve." Una took the package and smiled. "Thank you, Minho." Minho looked at Kale, who was sitting up in bed now, still covered in bandages but clearly healing. "I was wrong about you," Minho said. "I told Una to request a transfer. I said you were dangerous. I was an idiot." Kale studied him with those glowing eyes. Then he nodded slowly. "You were trying to protect her," Kale said. "I understand. I would have done the same." Minho let out a breath. "I owe you a debt. If there is anything I can do, keep her safe when I cannot," Kale said. "That is all I ask." Minho nodded. "I will. I promise." After Minho left, Una sat on the edge of Kale's bed. She opened the package and found warm bread and fruit inside. She divided it between them, and they ate together, just as they had done so many times before. "How do you feel?" Una asked. "Weak," Kale admitted, "but alive." "Thanks to you." "Thanks to both of us," Una corrected. "We saved each other." "That is how it should be." Kale was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke, his voice soft and sincere. "Una, when I came to this station, I had nothing. No family. No friends. No hope. I was just waiting to die. But you changed everything. You saw something in me that no one else could see. You gave me a reason to live." Una felt her heart swell with emotion. "You gave me the same thing, Kale. Before I met you, I was lonely too. I loved my work, but work is not enough. You became my family, my friend, my home." Kale reached out and placed his hand over hers. His scales were warm now, filled with life. "Among my people, there is no word for what you are to me," he said. "Shieldkin is close, but it is not enough. You are more than someone I protect. You are part of my soul." Una smiled through her tears. "Then we will make a new word." "A human word?" "Friend does not seem enough either. Maybe family." "Family," Kale repeated. He seemed to taste the word, to feel its weight. "Yes, I like that. We are family." 2 weeks later, Kale was finally released from the medical bay. He walked slowly, his body still healing, but his spirit was strong. Una walked beside him, matching his pace, refusing to leave his side. They returned to their shared quarters. The door had been repaired. The room had been cleaned. Everything looked normal, as if the nightmare had never happened. But they both knew better. They carried the memories of that night inside them. They would carry them forever. Una led Kale to the observation window. Outside, the stars stretched across the endless black ocean of space. Distant suns burned like diamonds. Nebulas swirled in colors beyond imagination. It was beautiful. It was infinite. "Look," Una said. The universe is so big. So many worlds. So many possibilities. And somehow, against all odds, we found each other. Kale stood beside her, his amber eyes reflecting the starlight. The universe is cold, he said. It is dark and empty and dangerous. But you have shown me that there is warmth too. There is light. There is kindness. He looked down at her. You have shown me what it means to be human. Una laughed softly. You are not human, Kale. No, he agreed. But I have learned the best part of humanity. The part that reaches out instead of pushing away. The part that loves without condition. The part that makes monsters into friends. Una leaned against his arm. She felt his warmth. She felt his strength. She felt safe. Stay with me, she said. Not just until morning. Stay forever. Kale wrapped one of his arms around her gently. Forever, he said. I promise. Outside, the stars continued to burn. The universe continued to spin. And in a small room on a distant station, two souls from different worlds stood together, bound by something stronger than fear or violence or time. They had found something rare. Something precious. Something that most beings search their whole lives to find. They had found each other, and that was enough.